nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We can have a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces. Thank you.
Vice President of the New Milford Historical Society and Museum. I come to talk about the budget. We'd like to first express our gratitude that we are even put on the budget, that in past years we've gotten money from the town. We thank you for that. This year, like in the past years, we are requesting the town to cover our lawn maintenance contract, which is just under $6,200. This contract is for the bare minimal services. We feel that we are the keepers of the town history, so the town has some responsibility to us. We are an extension of the village green, so we like to keep it looking as good as the green, so that costs money. Our yearly operating costs are $104,000. How do we do it? We're a nonprofit organization. We depend on donations, memberships, dues, grants, and fundraisers to pay our bills. If we're unable to maintain and pay for this museum, as per our bylaws, the museum will have to go to the town or another nonprofit. So the town will have to take on the $104,000 expenses. Our property is made up of 4 buildings at 6 Aspatook Avenue. We also have the Hill and Plain one-room schoolhouse, which we are just beginning to preserve. We employ a part-time curator, even though we need a full-time curator, but that's all we can afford. Our board consists of 11 volunteers, who half of them are comprised of retirees, the other half by full-time workers who own their own businesses or work for other people. Most of us come in daily to do something, some sort of volunteer work to cover what we need to do to run the museum. We have an education committee that reaches out to local schools, creates programs to educate our children about the history of our town. The schools, for my knowledge, do not do this. In the last 3 years, we have taken on many unexpected, costly projects. The stabilization of the Knapp House, which was closed for 3 years, that cost us $200,000 that we had to raise. And we're still raising money to paint the exterior of the building. Currently, our lower gallery is closed due to water flooding and drainage issues, which have occurred over the many years, but we had to close the gallery due to asbestos tile and we have removed that. The project is costing at least $15,000. And like I said, the Hill and Plain Schoolhouse is up to have some work done so it doesn't cave in. We have a very impressive museum gallery that includes many portraits of our founding families. We try and maintain what we can with the money we receive. If you haven't been there lately, we would urge all of you to come and visit, and please become members. The cheapest membership is $25. We need the support of the town to survive. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the end of the list, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Walter. Wait for Mike to come up here. And just kind of basic housekeeping again, as we've done throughout the whole set of special budget meetings. We can keep on task, ask budgetary questions if there's something different. If you'd like to ask that offline to any of the directors of the departments or any of the nonprofits, please do so. With that being said, Candlewood Lake Authority had asked to be moved up since they have another meeting to go right after ours. So with the council's pleasure, we could ask them to come up and present first. You guys can come up. Also, as kind of an aside, as they are coming forward, I know last year there was talk about the reduction in the budgetary item. One was Candlewood Lake Authority. We did find out that because we're part of a regional organization with members that do vote on budgetary items in representation of New Milford, whatever that budget is comes to the town, and that's what it is. We don't have the ability to adjust that budget. Am I correct?
Thank you.
Attorney Grimes?
That is correct.
Okay.
3 of the 5 ordinance towns have ordinances on record, which is live to all 5 to follow.
Thank you. Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mark Howarth. I'm the Executive Director of the Candlewood Lake Authority. A few others here with me. I'll just introduce us real quick. Phyllis Scher is our chairman. Joe Wodarski, one of our new Milford delegates, and Bill Lohan, one of our delegates from the town of Brookfield, is also our treasurer. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. Hopefully everybody received the 2 pieces of paper that we handed out. The first one I'd just like to take a second on here is the budget narrative that we handed out. On the second page of the budget narrative, there's a little pie chart, and that just sort of explains a little bit about, to go into again, the funding and how we're funded. About 77% of our budget comes from the municipal funds from the 5 towns around the lake. About 15.3% in our proposed budget this year would come from each of the towns. We make up the balance of our budget through outside contributions, which range from anything from different fundraising appeals and sponsorships that we do, contribution from First Light, and things of that nature. So that's how we make up the additional roughly 23% of our budget is through outside contributions. Down in the budget notes, we do have a few things I just wanted to point out. One of them is the capital item replacement fund that we will look to continue to fund at an expense of about $1,000 per municipality. That fund is used as a fund for when we need to replace certain large items. For instance, we do have one of our patrol boats, which is now around 20 years old. So we want to prepare to be able to build that fund up so that when we have, for instance, a hull failure, an engine failure, or a need to replace that, or our truck which hauls the boats, things like that, that we are prepared for that so we don't have to come back to the municipalities for any kind of a special appropriation. So we are looking to continue to build that fund for those needs. We also have a line in our budget, which is actually 551, which is related to the grass carp stocking. So the grass carp were put in the lake in 2015. We had another supplemental stocking 2 years later. We plan to continue having supplemental stockings with our grass carp program to help control the Eurasian milfoil in the lake. So we are looking to build that line, and that request is at $1,320 per town. And again, similar to the capital item replacement fund, we want to build that line to be prepared so that when the next time the state issues us a permit to add more carp as necessary to help control the milfoil, we are prepared to do so with that line. One other note in that budget note section is the line 314, the patrol training, which amounts to $900 per municipality. We are anticipating a new class of Marine Patrol officers to be hired in the off-season, start in the fall of 2019, this fall, leading into the 2020 season. So those training costs reflect both the increase for certain things related to the training as well as an adjustment. We realized that we were under budgeting that line a little bit, so that more accurately reflects our true cost for the training. Yeah, and there's also, yes, there is a uniform line in there as well, which we had to increase to the additional uniforms for the officers. Oops, that's all right. One other thing I wanted to just point out, because it is a change, we hired a new director of ecology and environmental education in August. That position has changed when I took on the executive director role. The executive director role changed in some ways. So in our budget, if you look at line 400, what we did was, because he's the director of ecology and environmental education, part of his salary, 40% of his salary, is located in line 400, which is the public education director salary from before. And then we have line 510, which is the director of ecology and environmental education. That's under watershed management. That's 60% of his salary. So his salary is split between those two lines to our best estimation to accurately reflect the amount of time he would spend on those individual areas. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Anybody have any questions?
You,
Mike?
yeah, how is the amount going up for each municipality, is that something that each individual town has to vote on, and then?
So,
Right,
to-
so,
To answer that,
yeah, sure.
to answer the question, Mike, is because we are part of this conglomerate of towns, Brookfield, Danbury, New Fairfield, New Milford, and Sherman, all have delegates from the towns. So by our ordinance, whatever they come up with the budget is divided by the towns, and we have to pay for it. We don't have the ability to reduce the budget in this venue.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Works for me.
Okay.
Doug?
Yep, Doug?
On line 513, you'll see the testing, the bacteria testing.
Yes.
I see that went down, and I guess the health department actually talked about it the other night as well. The testing that they do and the testing you guys, how does that work?
So that line, so the town has picked up, the municipalities have picked up the bulk of the fees for that testing. So the towns contribute, the health departments
Right.
contribute to the testing, which goes on in each of the town parks.
Right.
So that's the reduction in that line, because the
So
towns are.
basically move from your department to their department.
Exactly, we still have some money in there may be additional testing that's needed, so WestCon does that testing, but
Right.
correct, the health departments picked up the bulk of that, and that's the reduction in that line.
And just one other question, if you could help me out, with the training, now I see it went up a couple of grand. What's the difference between, did you have to pick up the slack with funding from the training? How did that work?
It wasn't properly funded.
Okay.
We realized that the training costs were more expensive than we were putting in the budget, so that cost more accurately reflects, because the DEEP does the training for our officers, so they go through annual training, and that number there is a better representation of the anticipated cost for training for us.
On a hiring year, it's higher. The training cost goes up on a particular hiring year. We don't always do hires every year.
I see.
So this year coming up, we are advertising and we will be doing hiring, so our training costs go up.
We hire basically every other year. The DEEP only does the hiring and training for new hires every other year, so that's why we have an alternate year hiring cycle.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I'm good.
Katie?
Seasonal, how many people are covered under that $8,000?
How many different officers?
People, yeah.
Yeah, that covers our seasonal patrol officers. What line are you looking at?
No, I think you might mean in watershed.
I'm looking at your seasonal staff.
In equipment and facilities.
What's the number?
200?
It is, hang on, it's number 2,000, wages, seasonal staff.
200.
200.
200, right, so that's equipment and facilities. So we try and bring on somebody during the summer to help out in operations staff, equipment and facilities, maintaining the facilities, the base, the boats, things like that, summer help for projects. So usually it's around one person or so. It's not a large number, and it may be a person for part of the year and another person fills in on the shoulder seasons.
Okay, so it's basically one person for the summertime.
Exactly, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And one more question, on several things you have based on historical use, one of them is the telephone, $4,900.
Yeah.
What is your actual telephone bill? I mean, it's historical use, is it actually that for the year to
What
year?
they have done is we usually, when we build our budget, we have two items. One is what our budget is, and what the actual use is at the end of the year,
Uh-huh.
so that we get a sense of the historical use and also 5 years of the budget. And it's more than one location, it's the offices we have.
Right, I understand that. So
33rd
this
Street
was
is-
made from five, you and I,
Yes.
we're just not seeing it, but that's what you.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks.
But basically, we try to do it on actual costs.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for
Okay.
all you do for the lake.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time. We would like to extend an invitation to any of the finance board members to come out on the lake. We have two options. You can either come out on my pontoon boat, or you can take a more exciting ride and go out with the Marine Patrol. And you don't have to do the whole 4-hour shift. You can go out for an hour and they'll take you back on land. But it's a good idea to get a sense of what they do, and you might contact Joe, who's also chairman of Public Safety, if you're interested. So
Thank you,
please,
Phyllis.
consider it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the WPCA. Mr. Whitman.
Yeah.
He gets easy.
Just stay to the side. That's fine. Good evening.
Thank you,
Good evening,
Mr.
Mayor.
Whitman,
Good
for
evening,
coming
Board.
tonight.
Good evening, Town Council. First of all, I'm just a bit of exciting news. I'd like to introduce our new office manager, Kathleen Tereso. She's taken over for Charlene, who retired after 21 and a half years. Extremely pleased with Kathleen. She brings some accounting background. She's collegiately trained, and we're just ecstatic. And Brian Warman comes to us from Wright Pierce, and he is our interim superintendent, and he's doing one heck of a job. And he's filling in a void as we still search for a full-time superintendent. And Brian brings a lot of experience with a 20 million gallon a day plant at Mattabasset, so he's seen something quite a bit larger than we have. So he's putting a lot of effort into looking at our system and bringing everything he possibly can from his experience over 20 some odd years in a superintendent position. So that's we're building our staff back up, so we're real happy with that. I give you the operating budget, and it is a small decrease from last year. Let me just get back to my last page here, and it's at about a negative 0.84%. What we have now is that since this budget was passed, through a lot of discussion, I have a fantastic board and puts a lot of effort into the creation of this budget, which is excellent. We have a couple of changes. We have an addition we want to make to the budget, and we have some reductions in expenses we want to make. Since Kathleen and Brian have come back in, and Brian in the superintendent position, they've been looking at 5-year trends. So we're in our meeting on this coming Monday. We're going to present an alteration to the budget, and if the board does approve that, it's a modest change in the budget. We will give copies of that budget to the board and to the council.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. We show our depreciation expense on the last page, and that's pretty much how we fund internal repairs, additions, whatever, to our capital infrastructure. And we call it it's almost our sinking fund into how we are going to pay for West Side and Still River pumping lift stations. That's how we're going to pay for it. The idea there is that except for large things like plant expansions, where we have to come to the town and ask for help with bonding on that, we try, to the best of our ability, to take some of the operating capital, do the best we can to pay the town back for the bond, and plow some of that operating capital into a depreciation account, into a fixed asset replacement bucket where we can start paying for some of this stuff. Now, once we pay for West Side with the money that we have in there, which is about $1.4 million, that expense is going to be, it'll start building that fixed asset replacement account back up so that we are able to pay for things like, VFDs, variable frequency drives, and things like that are many thousands of dollars. And so with that, we've got a 5-year capital plan that we have very judiciously looked at. And now with Brian here, and since we've had a void for approximately 2 years coming up in a month, Brian has taken his experience looking at our 5-year capital plan and saying, have we got it in the right order? Looking at the plan, have we got the items in the right order? Is year 1 really year 1, or should it be year 3? Is year 4 really year 4, or should it be year 1? So he's looking at that now since we've had a void in that level of management. Our salaries and our hourly rates, for the most part, are in line. In speaking with Greg Valero at HR, are in line with DPW's Class 2 employees, and the only deviations we have are our shift supervisor, who has been there for about 20 some odd years, and he is basically in charge of the operations on a daily basis, and also our leadership team, who is paid as salaried and are paid as in a professional capacity. But we are in line with the DPW's Class 2. One thing I'd like to say about our operation, when you look at the budget, and one of the things we're going to avoid are nitrogen paybacks, the nitrogen system, and we're pretty sure that we're going to be just fine this year. So we did not budget for that. We didn't budget for that because we don't think there's going to be any impact. Our nitrogen levels are excellent. Our toxicity tests are excellent. They're beyond excellent. We've had no mechanical breakdowns or emergencies that we could not handle within a reasonable period of time, so they didn't turn into major issues. We've been able to do that. We've developed that 5-year capital plan that I talked about that Brian is going to help go through and make sure that we've got the right sequence. And we also are striving to the best of our ability to keep the rates as low as we possibly can. You know, and just to make the burden on the residents of the town as small as it possibly can, and to still do a prudent job, you know, and fiscally responsible to our organization to run it properly. So that is our budget. And one of the things we're going to look at when we look at this alteration that we'll be speaking about at Monday's board meeting, things such as our overtime expense. These two fine folks, especially Brian, have been looking at our overtime expense, our utility bills, our five-year averages. And Katie, you had talked about those averages. Kathleen has been pulling those averages since she got here, and looking back at about a five-year plan, so that we can have a real good look at our energy expenses and see if we can drive some of those costs down. And some of that will be in the altered, or I should say, the little renovation of the budget we're presenting on Monday. And also things there are things in there like a collection expenses and meter reading expenses. We just haven't expended those. We're going to start taking those right out of the budget. So it's a very small percentage change that we're going to make, but there's some interesting and exciting stuff in there, and we will definitely, if we pass that change, we will get everyone copies of that. In your packet, I gave you a sheet about benefit assessments and sewer connection fees. They're understood and sometimes misunderstood. And that's how we pay back the town on the bond repayment, the $1.2 million bogey that we have to look at every year and the town has to look at, and the $22 million, in essence, expenditure for that plant expansion that predates me by many years on the board. And this is how we pay it back, and we're diligently looking at ways to enhance our ability. And we go to finance, and I know, Pete, you and I have had discussions about that, and we do our very, very best to enhance our ability to pay that bond back every year without affecting our ability to internally fund some projects. So it's a balancing act, it's a tightrope act, because we don't want to come back to the council, we don't want to come back to Greg Ossipow and say we need to fund something that's $200,000 because we haven't fiscally been responsible. So that's why we're trying to do this, and it is a balancing act, it's a constant act. So some of the things I'm very excited about, and I put that in your package next to the benefit assessments, and there's some technical things in there. It's how we're going to pay the bond back in 2018-19. I should have gone to that. Now, how we're going to pay it back in 2019 and 20. And it's basically and before I get to the exciting stuff, it's the capital recovery of connection fees. Those are the connection fees that sometimes are an impediment to expansion, impediment to growth. And we're working with the town on trying to do some creative things around that. It's also the debt service. It's $25 for the 28 to $3,000 customers that we have, and that debt service is paid once a year. And then the benefit assessments that, as the plant was extended, as the collection system was extended, these will drop off. And I think, Kathleen, when is the last one off? How many years from now?
The last one is about 13 or 15 years.
Okay, so it's going to go on for a while. The benefit assessment will go on for a while, but eventually that will stop. Okay, the next 3, the next 5 or 6. So that's how we pay the bond, as best as we can, the bond back to the town every year. And we're looking for ways to enhance that possibility, working with the Economic Development Committee, working with the mayor, working with the council to find different ways to do that. So some of the exciting things that we would like to hang our hat on is that obviously Kathleen Tereso, obviously Brian Warman, and I've got a fantastic Board of Commissioners. We have very engaging, we're very cohesive, and it just is, it's a good board. I couldn't ask for a better board. We're working with the town's executive management and leadership to enhance the commercial expansion and growth, and that's something what I was talking about, to try to get those connection fees and try to get an enhancement for economic growth in this town, and not just growing who's here, but growing someone to come here. And that's what we're working with the town for. And we're fulfilling our obligation to operate an effective and efficient sewer plant while continually looking for ways to enhance our financial responsibility. That's a daily thing we go through, is how can we make our system more efficient so we can make ourselves more fiscally viable, it is. And the $1.4 million planned renovation of the West Side Lift Station, we're paying for that ourselves. We're paying for that ourselves because of the operating capital that we have plowed into the fixed asset replacement, and still trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can to the town. That's how we're going to fund these things. And once that is paid for, and that's going to be going out to bid here, I would say within the next 30 days. It's now before our corporate counsel, and that's Lori, and she's going through the final stages on that, and we will be ready to go out to bid for that. And that's a 2-year program. So we're going to run those expenditures over a 24-month period, at least 18 months, so that that fixed asset replacement account won't completely go dry. It'll be replenished as we plow money into it every single month, and we transfer money from the operating capital into that fixed fund. So I think we got a good year planned. We are still looking for a superintendent. We have some pretty good leads going on as far as filling this job on a regular and permanent basis. Brian, even if that job is filled, Brian will be staying on it as an expert to assist in that transition. And I have the entire organization, Wright Pierce, behind us and supporting us in anything we need because of this transition period and our lack of leadership, other than the board, because we're not there every day. So with that, any questions? And I will most definitely do my best, or the three of us are here.
John, thank you. Lovely, and welcome Kathleen and Brian. Just a couple simple things. I noticed that you have your chemicals are down 8,000 and sludge disposal is down 50,000.
Yes.
So what happened to the rest of the
We're
sludge?
taking less septic.
Oh, you're taking,
A lot less.
This is the heavy stuff that you, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're taking a lot less.
Hence, then you don't need all those chemicals.
That is correct.
Oh, great. That's a good answer. Thanks.
You're welcome. And if I might, because we're taking less septage, and we're taking, Wright Pierce did the study for us about 1.5 years ago now, I think it is, Brian. About 1.5 years ago, because we were taking in roughly 3 times the amount of septage that the plant could handle. And because we were taking that back, we went almost into a mini crisis. And we were running both trains. We have 2 trains, and we're both running all the time. Wright Pierce did a study, and they said what you could take in the cold weather, what you could take in the warm weather, and we're trying to stay within that. Obviously, there's some peak days. There's some peak days we take a lot more than that. But we're trying not to go over that and keep the plant in good operation, because if we put that plant into a crisis mode, then we got a real problem.
So
that's why they're lower.
You're balancing it well. You're balancing it
We're balancing
and reducing. That's
yes.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for John? John, I'd like to thank you. Oh, Lisa?
So 2 things. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome, Kathleen. Welcome, Brian. Just for comparability's sake, if I could ask, next time we see a budget presentation, if you could include the 16, 17 actual, the prior 2 years actual.
Oh, sure.
Because everybody does that, so it's helpful for all of us.
You got it.
To have the actual and then the year-to-date run rate, just as a point of order. One of the pieces of feedback I've heard anecdotally is that sometimes there's a very long wait for local haulers to dump their loads, and sometimes they choose to go elsewhere. Do we have any kind of metric on that, and how is that tracking, and what are you doing to manage that, if that is indeed the case? Because anecdotally, it's not always factual.
I understand that. And it is, for the most part, anecdotal. And we get a little bit of that. And it's very, very isolated.
Okay.
We have a 15-minute, and it's well known by the haulers, a 15-minute maximum wait. We rarely, if ever, go past that 15 minutes. Rarely. What happens sometimes is that a hauler or two having to wait is asking why. There's another collection system we have, and it's called the Raptor. That Raptor system versus our Lakeside system, they're different. The Raptor does not allow for filtration and good management of the septage. Am I correct? Yeah. And what happens is that They know that that Raptor was put in there when the plant was being expanded. So the fact that the good system, the one that feeds our system control and data acquisition, our SCADA system, that one is the one where they should be dumping. But they see the one that was put in there because when the plant was going into rebuild, we had to use alternate means. We never took it out of service. So now you see that one there. It lets the rags go through. It lets all kinds of stuff through. It lets all kinds of debris go through. But that's all we could do back then. So they get a little upset because we won't let them use it. And that's why we get some of that stuff. And it's not necessarily anecdotal. It's real, but we tell them why they can't do it.
So you're tracking the wait times on a daily basis, monthly basis? Okay.
There's an employee that goes out there and he works with the truckers. And if it's a little bit longer than 15 minutes and nobody else is waiting, they'll allow them to do that. But it is important that they do get the regs and the grid and stuff out going using proper equipment.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And that's the budget run rates. Thank you very much.
John, we want to thank you and definitely appreciate the partnership that the sewer WPCA had with the town. The fact that we're looking at different opportunities, which we will be presenting to the council about ways to help bring more economic development into town. So John, I want to thank you and the staff and the commission.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is the Commission on the Arts. Is Linda here? Okay. She comes back, we'll see if she's here. Next, Farmland Preservation. Yep, Farmland Preservation. Commission on the Arts, we yeah. Sorry. Yes, sir.
Good evening.
How are you?
My name's Steve Kleppen. I'm the the chairman of the Farmland Preservation Committee. We're here. Our budget's pretty simple. We have 3 line items. They're all priced the same. Small budget, $4,500. Last year there was a little confusion. I don't think we had notice of the meeting, so I don't think we had anybody here in attendance to fight for our small budget. So I'm here tonight. Hopefully we can restore the funds we have in the 3 line items. They really focus on more outreach efforts and assistance in farm-related activities. We don't have, as I said, it's not a very large budget. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Any questions?
We'll make the fight this year.
Thanks.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Next is the Film Commission. Is there anyone from the Film Commission here tonight? Okay. Next, we're going to Parks and Rec. Dan and Eleanor. Certainly, if you'd like to.
I think you know. I think you know.
Thank you, Eleanor.
Are you?
Thank you, dear.
No, she sent them.
Oh, she did.
Yeah. Should be in your email.
It probably is. I just didn't see it today, too.
Hey, Walter, while they're waiting, how about those Mets?
This could be the year, Walter. say that every
That's what I'm saying,
This could be
Walter.
the year.
Tonight?
Yes.
Huh. Maybe they'll come. Maybe they'll come later. What are you looking for? What's he look? Steve, what are you looking for? It's under economic development. It's under that subheading.
Trevor, I'm glad you had an opportunity to take advantage.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Dan Calhoun, Director of Parks and Recreation. I'd like to present my budget for this year. First thing is our goals for this year. We would like to continue offering quality and affordable programming to all residents of New Milford's population. We'd like to continue to maintain clean and attractive and safe parks for the residents. And we're trying to increase our revenues through additional programming, rentals, and fee increases. Okay. Okay, this year, I'm happy to say that we've been able to reduce our operating budget once again this year by $1,888, or 0.016%. Our largest increase this season is in our part-time and seasonal personnel line. We're requesting an additional seasonal maintainer at $5,720. And the reason for this is that over the years, we've taken on numerous parcels to maintain, such as Holton Meadows, the River Trail, all the sidewalks on Grove Street and Route 67, all the way up to Gabriel Circle. We've taken on the John Pettibone Community Center. We've taken on the Facilities Maintenance Departments and the Water Witch Hose Company number 2. Also, in that, we would like to hire a park manager for Lindeming Park at $4,717. This position will be to oversee the park on weekends from Memorial Day through Labor Day. One item that has not gone up in our budget is our Teamster overtime. It has stayed the same for the last couple of years, and this item is to cover snow removal and other weather-related emergencies. Also, this covers 3 hours of overtime every Saturday and Sunday and holidays from Memorial Day through Labor Day to take care of Lindeming Park. They clean the bathrooms, they groom the beach, empty trash, and those type of things. So that has stayed the same. Next item is our subsidized contractual. We've decreased that line item by $2,794, or 4.05%. This fund covers items such as tractor repairs, tree trimming, and removal, welding, and things like that. Another item in that budget is we offer scholarships to the Social Services Department at $4,600. This allows children less fortunate to be able to participate in park and rec programs, and this is divvied out by the Social Services Director. Another line item is our subsidized materials and supplies. That's decreased by $885, or 1.4%. Another item is our programs personnel self-sustaining. That has decreased by $3,660, or 3.09%. This line covers our program instructors, our referees, our umpires, coaches, and people like that. Next budget item is our contractual self-sustaining. That has decreased by $4,935 or 3.1%. This is for items like our pool rentals, ice skating rink rentals, our road race timing, and park security and things like that. So we're happy to say our budget came in at $1,155,799. And our anticipated revenues this year is $547,135. The net cost to taxpayers this year from our budget would be $610,664, or 47.3% of the budget. Next item is our revenue generators for this year. We have been able to increase our revenues through program fees. Now all our program fees, we charge 15 to 20, 15, from 15 up to 20 to 25% on every program that we run comes back to the town. We've increased our park stickers, our boat slip fees, boat launch fees, pavilion rentals, kayak rack fees, and our application fees to rent facilities. Other revenue generators is day passes, paddleboard, pedal boat, and kayak rentals at the lake. And then we have food and food concessions throughout the town and parks, and also our boat concessions that works on the river trail. So next is our anticipated revenue compared to last year. Our program fees have gone up a few $1,000s. Our summer playground fees revenue has gone up to $87,000. Lynn Deming has gone up quite a bit to almost $20,000. A big part of that is our boat slip fees. I think we had our boat slip registration the other day, and just with boat slips alone, we brought in $10,000 over last year. We've also increased park reservation fees, filing fees, and things like that, so that has gone up almost $2,000. We have concessions and vendings, like I said, throughout the parks. That has gone up. So our anticipated revenues have gone up to $547,135, which reimburses 52.66% of our requested budget. And this is just a list of some of our revenue generated, how we're going to do that. We've increased our recreation and program fees and additional program offerings. Like I said before, our programs are designed to provide 20 to 25% revenue above program expenses. And in the future, exploring building use fees for John Pettibone School Gymnasium and classrooms that we're in charge of. That completes my part of it. If anybody has any questions for me.
Before we get into questions, just real quick, I'd like to thank Dan. The council last year asked for some additional enhancements as far as revenue generation, and I appreciate you and the boards and your staff looking at different ways to create revenue. Increasing the boat slips was a good one. A couple of the expenditures, I know when Dan and I meet weekly, one of them is the maintainer that he's asking for this year. And by kind of looking at the workforce, because of snow removal and issues like that, a lot of the summer, you do have members that do take, as we all do, vacations. And that does impact the workload. So by bringing on a summer maintainer, that's going to allow us to stabilize and permit different work crews to go out and complete the work. So that's going to bring us a definite return on our investment by having that summer maintenance person available. As for the park ranger or park manager, as we saw last year when we were able to put that position in, it was a great help to the lifeguards and to the security staff at Lendemi. And to me, that is definitely a big return on the investment for the taxpayers who, buy the permits, and non-residents buy the permits, plus the taxpayers using the land settlement fund to make that the crown jewel of the lake. So I think if we add those two things with the council and with the Board of Finance's permission, I think that'd be great benefits to Dan and his staff. Katie?
Oh, thanks, Dan. Eleanor, great. Great, the revenues are up. Just a question, on the manager, the park manager, will that person be managing only Lindemming or other parks?
That park manager just will be doing Lindemming, and it's Saturdays and Sundays throughout the summer months.
Okay.
And then he goes to Addis as well, right?
Well,
Right
that's
after?
a park ranger. The park ranger hits all our parks on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Oh, so the ranger does,
Yeah, he does the loop.
okay, he
with the-
ranges, got it.
Right, correct.
So one clarification on that, so new park manager won't be there on like holiday Mondays or holiday Fridays?
Yes, he will.
Okay.
He'll cover every
So long
weekend and
weekends,
holidays,
okay,
whenever
gotcha.
our regular staff isn't there.
Okay, thank you.
And
You're
just
welcome.
one more question. The concession stand. There was some problem last year, problem in that you couldn't get anybody for a while. There wasn't, has that been fixed?
It's out to bid right now, so we should know in a couple of weeks. We're hoping, I had a bunch of calls, so I'm hoping that we can get a vendor at the lake again. We
Good.
definitely have ice cream, we always have an ice cream vendor, but we're
Yeah.
trying to get a food vendor there
No, a few
also.
people mentioned it, of course, you never know, they might have been there on a day when the guy had to be out. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you very much.
Lisa?
So, you did the math wrong.
Okay.
But I got excited when I saw your program fee percentage increase 15% to 20 to 25%, but then your revenue overall only increases 6%. So are we just seeing a decline in program participants? Because that's the only way that math works. Can you tell me a little bit about program participants trends?
Our
Actuals?
trends are pretty much solid. I think they're actually probably will be going up. We've been offering a lot more programs.
Have
My-
any numbers for me?
Yeah, my anticipated revenue, I think that's probably because we don't know what we're gonna get this year. We're anticipating more people in our programs.
So if we look back a couple of years, again, 16, 17, 18, 19 attendance, any rough numbers?
I don't have the rough numbers, but they were definitely, a couple years ago, they were down, our numbers were down. We had a couple programs that we lost instructors, we lost a few instructors, so our numbers were down. Now, I think they're going up, starting this year, they've really gone up. We've offered a lot more programs, so I'm hoping everything else goes up.
So if I could get, again, the last 2 years and this year-to-date attendance numbers, that'd be awesome.
Okay, I'll see if I can do, we just recently got that software program to track that stuff, so a lot of it's handwritten stuff.
Oh, speaking of that, so I know DPW has recently changed the way they keep track of people's time and efficiencies, and I didn't know, have you guys instituted any type of automated time management for your maintainers?
No, we just do it, it's manual at this point. There's 5 of them, so I've been doing it manually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about going to automation? Would
I've
that be
talked to the
helpful?
mayor about that a little
Okay.
bit. We mentioned it.
Okay, still in discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I can tell you that for the first 6 months of, starting from July 1 to the present, to February 13th, participants 3,007.
Thank you. You would have that last year, what money would you?
I don't have that.
Okay, thank you, Eleanor.
I have to ask, one of your new programs is pickleball, which,
Yes.
as I hear on the street, is extremely popular. Have you seen a lot of activity or interest?
That comes and goes, that program. A lot of people, well,
It bounces around, is that?
well, yeah.
That's so bad.
Of course, in the summertime, it's slow. Wintertime, it picks up, but we had, was it Newtown? Newtown had offered it, and they had a new facility, and they were doing it for free for a while.
Oh,
So
They
now,
just started now charging.
so we're starting to see some people coming back,
so looking.
so.
And you only do that indoors
That's indoor, at this point, yeah.
only?
But we have a new program that's really popular, is badminton. Badminton's coming back, but we have a high school group that comes in once or twice a week now, and it's very popular. They come in and pay a day, like a day
It's
pass.
wonderful. For some of us, it never left.
And this is at Pettibone?
This is at Pettibone in the gym.
Thank you, that's great to
You're
hear.
welcome.
Doug?
Dan, you mentioned maintenance at Waterworks number 2.
Yeah.
What do you guys do with the fire department?
We mow.
How about snow removal?
No, I think they still have someone that takes care of that, but we do all the mowing there.
Okay.
For the last couple of years, we were asked to take on that. I guess, I don't know if they didn't have the funding for it or didn't have anybody anymore, so we were asked to take on that.
Now, the manager is gonna be obviously at Linden, correct?
Correct.
And then you have the ranger who's gonna be helping out Carlson Grove, Batter Valley, Addis Park and stuff. What are his hours gonna be like on the holidays and weekends? What's his
He
schedule?
usually works our problem area is in the evenings. So he usually works holiday and weekend evenings, and, you know, he hits all the parks.
Okay.
Especially Addis Park, because it gets a lot of use, people bringing in kayaks and boats, and we've had issues with non-residents. So he checks on that. So he spends some time there, but he hits all the parks that I give him a list to do.
Right.
He drives around, hits them all, makes sure that everything's safe. If he sees people there after hours, you know, if he can't handle it, he calls PD. So he has definitely a line to PD on a regular basis when there's issues.
And obviously, if the manager is needed, he could help out if he was needed or the park ranger wasn't around. I mean, he's not restricted to stay at Linden.
No, if we had to have someone at a different site, we could always pull him. It's definitely,
Right.
it's our choice.
He's not restricted to Linden.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there's one
Katie?
more. I noticed there was $1,000 in for signs. Usually every year you have 1,000, and I'm sure some get broken, whatever.
Woodpeckers.
You have what?
Woodpeckers.
Woodpeckers? Those darn birds. But I just have a thought, a comment, a suggestion. In other towns I've seen where they have consistent signs for all their parks, and I know we tend to have different logos and different things, but sort of like when you see the blue H, you know that's where the hospital
Yeah.
is, you know? I mean, we have a lot of wonderful New Milford logos. Maybe, you know, just a thought, you might come up with something or use what one we have, and every park would have that, or in their directional or whatever you're using all your signs for. You know, because we're doing so much to make them look great.
Sure.
And spending the money to keep them up. It would be nice to have new people to town.
Okay.
Just thought. Thanks.
Any other questions
I
for Dan?
just want to add one
Doug?
thing, because I'm on the Park and Rec. I want to thank Lisa, Eleanor, and all the people on the Park and Rec. And Deanna's right, in the last 5 years, we've probably got, 6 to 8 different facilities you guys now take care of.
Correct.
And so, you know, he's done a wonderful job, and it's an overburden to them with the staff they have, and so I thank all of them. It's a lot of work. We own a lot of parks and a lot of facilities around here, and every year it seems like we're building another one, and then there seem like the low man in the totem pole. They're always ones that, we'll give it to Park and Rec and let them mow it, so there's only so much time, and that's usually how it works.
That
so.
is usually what they say.
Thank you.
I want, you know, unfortunately, I've been to a lot of meetings lately because of restrictions and conflicts, but they're doing a great job, so I thank you all.
Thank you.
You must be darn good at that mowing.
Any other questions for Dan? Dan, thank you.
Thank you,
The staff.
everybody. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next is New Milford Center Cemetery.
Hi, I'm Susan Sinello, and I'm the Secretary Treasurer for New Milford Center Cemetery. And I did not do a big book this year. I did a little Excel spreadsheet. I hope everybody got a copy.
I don't see a copy.
Okay. Well,
You can tell
I
us.
only have one, but I will share it.
Excellent.
Okay. We're asking for roughly the same amount as last year. We've been trying to keep our expenses down. We were very fortunate to get some donations of topsoil and millings and stone to use in mixing the concrete for foundations. It was not necessarily a monetary donation, but it was an in-kind, which helps tremendously. We have a new staff this year. They all started about this time last year. We have 2 full-timers and a part-timer, and they're excellent. Everybody's getting along fine, and it's been great. So I based this year's budget request on averages over the last, from 2013 through 2018, and everything pretty much stays consistent. As far as grave openings and stuff, we have the same number of burials roughly every year, and our income from the portfolio We get that figure right from the investment firm, so we know what to expect from that. Sales of burial rights are where we have fluctuations over the years, so it's hard to predict what we're going to have for that. Other than that, we appreciate all the help we get, and if you have any questions, I'm here to try to answer them.
And just so we have clarification with us, the request is for $44,942.
That's correct, and no capital expenditure.
And so for edification for us, 19's budget was $44,648, so it's an increase of $294. And as most of us that have been on this council and Board of Finance before, is if we do not fund the cemetery, what ends up happening is you will have Public Works burying our deceased, which would be even more expensive. So I want to thank you and the staff for the good job you do at our premier, so to speak, cemetery. And does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Next is Northwest Regional Mental Health. Linda. Linda wasn't here with the arts, but it's let's go to 185 real quick.
And this is a regional requirement, right?
Yep. And
$1,500.
15, I believe it's 1,500.
Yeah, 1,500 is all.
Okay. We'll see if Linda can get something on that. Children's Center. Come on up.
Representing the Children's Center tonight. In the corner. Coming in at 220, no. Is Charlie Raymond, Chairman of the Board, Linda Kennedy Gomez, our Comptroller, and Susan Johnston, the Director of the school. You know us. I'm not sure what you need to hear. I mean, there's the top line items, 47 sliders out of 100 kids, so half the school is on a sliding fee scale. What does that mean to the town? We create taxpayers. They keep their jobs. They're not forced to go back onto welfare because they can't afford childcare. Does anybody know what the cost of childcare is now? Would anybody like to hear the number?
Yes, we'd love to hear the number.
$13,000 a year for a preschooler, almost $15,000 a year for an infant toddler. Who can afford that? You guys make it possible for our town to have a school, half of the kids on a sliding fee scale. And what you contribute to the Children's Center's budget is 13.8% of our budget. So as a delegate agency, it's a small percent of the budget, but crucial. So those are the top line, big picture issues. We couldn't do it without your support, without your help. And I think it means a lot to the town. I hope it means a lot to the town. So first and foremost, thank you for all the years of support. We wouldn't be here without you. A lot has changed. One thing that hasn't, our budget. We're coming in the same as last year. We're not asking for an increase. Our budget's gone up a little. We have some staff changes. We've had some part-time people that have moved to full-time, which makes them eligible for our SEP IRA account and makes them eligible for health care. That costs us a little more. We're not passing that on to you. I'm asking the board to raise more money. Our SEP IRA, great thing to offer them, but we have a 5-year plan. 2 out of the 5 years, we have to match at 3%. This is one of those years. So we have to increase that budget item this year. Next year too, probably. What do you think?
Next
2 in a
no,
row?
We have to 2 and, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where.
Federal mandated.
Yeah. So our health insurance cost, flat. We weren't ready for that. We were expecting a jump. We didn't get it. It actually went up in terms of our costs because we had part-time people go on to the health insurance because they became full-time. But the cost per person stayed constant, which was a godsend because we have 90 8% of our budget is our staff. And if we don't keep them through our benefits, we certainly don't keep them because of what we pay them. We pay at least less than half of what public school teachers get. So that's a hard job for our teachers. They work more hours and they get half the pay. I did a quick analysis. I took a course on general administration of child care centers, and I was really pleased to see that overall, our center is absolutely in line with the national averages for the functional costs on two major categories. One, child care and teaching. You want that to be in the national range. The range is 37% to 70% of the budget. That's the national average. We come in at 65% of the national average. That's what you want. You want to see the teachers being paid. Administration, on the other hand, me and Linda and our manager and our cook, we have a cook in our administration, national average 8 to 27%, the children's center is at 22%. So we're within standard operating ranges, which is fine. So what else do you want to know about the school? We're going to be 48 this year. We love to celebrate birthdays, so I'll tell you a quick birthday story and then wrap it up. So the founder of our school, Dr. Hamlin, came to the school a few years ago, walked into a classroom, the kids were singing happy birthday. The woman, Dr. Hamlin, said to the little boy, "How old are you?" And he was so proud to say, "I'm 5. And then he looked at her and said, "How old are you?" And she said, "Why, I'm 90. He asked, "Did you start at 1? Numbers. What can I tell you? I mean, we are celebrating a big birthday, 48. The school is successful. We attract and retain good teachers. My favorite story is when I used to tell to the board members, I hear from kindergarten teachers all the time, you always know when the child has been at the children's center, and you want to know, you know how? Because they come ready to learn. I had a board member come to me this year after her daughter registered for kindergarten, and she said, "I always thought you were pulling the wool over our eyes." No one ever told you that, Susan. Did they really? And then she said, "But I went to my parent-teacher conference, and guess what the kindergarten teacher said? Did your child go to the child care center, the children's center?" And she said to the teacher, "How did you know?" She said, "Because she's ready to learn." It's like, yeah, it's real. And you make it possible. We love partnering with you. Thank you. Any questions, concerns?
Thank you.
So Susan, we want to thank you and want to thank your board and your staff. I've personally seen what you guys do with the children there and the opportunities that you give those that are less fortunate, the same opportunities that those that do. And we can't thank you enough. The town asked you to take this on years ago. And also it's in our community action plan in the 70s it was written, which helps us with our bonds and how we're rated. And I just continue to say thank you for what you do.
We thank you back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Give local, April 23rd, come to our barbecue.
Next, we have the, we've got the Housatonic Valley Association, which is page 68. I believe that's $350. And this is a regional one. And same thing as it would be with Candlewood Lake Authority, because we do have delegates to there. It's what the budget is, our portion. So that's the $350. The next is our service officers budget, which I believe is page 199. And for those new on the board, the service officers, that's our veterans groups, and they decorate our graves, and they do all veterans affairs, and we went by what they had asked us for. If anybody has any questions on that. Next, we'll move on to the nonprofits grant request per application package, and we'd like to do, Walter, if you could hand these out. Let's see, we got 6 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think I made enough copies here. If you could kind of share those. And basically what this is the council approved us setting up a grants application committee to review the nonprofits that aren't our agencies or put in our munis accounts, their requests. As you can see here, and Katie Francis was on it, as well as Walter. And Katie, if you could kind of...
Sharon Ward also.
And Sharon Ward, obviously, as well.
And CJ Murakami.
Yep. If you could kind of go
Sure.
over what the committee is proposing to the council and to the Board of Finance after reviewing the applications.
The committee formulated an application which was available, deadline I believe was at the end of December. And we had 4 people complete their applications and send them in to us. That was the Visiting Nurse Association, the Historical Society, Literacy Volunteers on the Green, and Ability Beyond. And so all 4 of those are being funded based upon what you have there. Do you want me to go through it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the VNA would be funded for $20,000. That is based upon funding they receive from the town for certain services through the health department, and what we felt in this particular situation that we're in, we looked at wants versus needs. There are definitely services from the VNA that are definitely needed, and we went through that and decided on the $20,000 as a certainly not fully funding what they asked for, but a reasonable amount to keep it going. They do have a rather good foundation. They have some money to carry them through, and we are just really not in a situation right now. The New Milford Historical Society, as you heard Loretta mention, they had asked for $6,745 for their lawn maintenance. Again, we went through that and decided to fund for $2,000, which we felt was really all we could do. The total amount of this nonprofit funding comes to $25,000, which is the amount we felt we could reasonably add on to a budget that you've all been hearing about for the last few days. So $2,000 for the Historical Society. The Literacy Volunteers on the Green asked for $1,000. We're funding them for $1,000. Ability Beyond, they had requested $5,000, and they do serve families in New Milford, so we appropriated $2,000 for them. So that's a total of $25,000 to add to our budget. And again, this is our presentation. This will go forward as everything else to the Board of Finance. So if anybody have any questions, Walter or I could answer.
I just want to say thank you for the LVA. Appreciate that. Do you recall what some of the wants were for visiting nurse associations?
There were several things mentioned, and one of them is they do home care. So if you were to leave the hospital and you needed someone to be there with you when you got home, or maybe not every day, but throughout the week, or maybe you need somebody every day when you first get home. And that is a cost that we share in part with them. It's $189 is their public fee for that. So we looked at that, and Walter, there were 144 people. And we also fund part of their services through our health department. So we decided that between what we funded and other donations and things that they received, that we would fund the $89, which wasn't funded through the town. We took that 89 times the number of people and basically divided it from there.
Is that per hour cost or
No, it's
per
a
day?
flat. It's sort of a daily.
Wow. Okay.
I guess it's a daily or service cost. It's
Mhm.
100. I can't tell you how they figured it out.
All right.
But just so you know, all 4 applicants provided a lot of information, 990s. What did we get? We also, I looked at them so long ago. What else did we get?
Operating budgets.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of budgets, all kinds of reports.
Tax returns, which are the 990s.
You name it. I mean, we know everything about them, just as they would for any RFP, that they were to do. And, they're all very worthy. And again, we had to say wants versus needs as we look at everybody else. I mean, you know.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Katie, for doing that, because it's hard to say no, I know that.
It certainly is.
Did you guys just decide that, did you just pick that number of 25 grand and decide how you're gonna allocate that, or did that number just happen to be even like that?
Well, we took a look at the budget that we, what we knew was a budget that was coming, and approximately, and felt that the tolerance in our budget couldn't be much more than that. We actually started talking about less, but when we went through the 4 applicants and realized that, you know, there is a service that's provided. That was part of our criteria, was services that were provided that could not be covered by other agencies in our town or by any departments of our town. And again, how vital, how, you know, how necessary, how vital versus, just as we ask anyone else, we'd really like to have X, but we only need half of X to make it through. And that's sort of how we viewed it, I would say, right?
Just add that we mailed out to a lot of various nonprofits in the area that we've had funded in the past, and these were the only 4 that really responded with the appropriate applications to go through. So we weren't just eliminating people at willy-nilly. There was a procedure. They were all told what that procedure was, for those of you who weren't here last year. And, you know, these, as I said, these are the only 4 that met the criteria even to be included. And we all knew it was going to be a tough budget year, the people that were on the committee that looked through this. So, and part of the criteria when we sent the letters out was to let people know that there was no guarantee of getting any money. It was totally dependent on what the town budget was going to be, and it would vary from year to year. So.
Barbara?
Were there a lot of other groups that wanted to be included in this? And
No,
yet
4
weren't-
applications, that's
weren't-
all.
But they, that started the process and maybe didn't finish, or?
I only know that we received 4 applications, and we received a couple of letters that were, that had no idea, they weren't involved, they were sent to the mayor. They were just letters from various organizations, sort of form letters that are sent out asking for funding. One of them was written as if it had been sent to Bethel.
And another one to Mayor Gronbach.
Right.
So how year off they've been.
One told us that how 758 people in Bethel had used their services. I thought that was nice, but, you know, no, only 4, Barbara.
So you wouldn't say then that there are groups that want to be part of this and are unable to complete the application process, or the request for information is too onerous, or?
Oh, my goodness, no, we asked for the same information that anyone would ask from a 501c nonprofit to fund. It was all the same thing you would see from anybody.
Just like writing a grant when you're asking
Yeah,
a grant.
exactly.
From a
No,
foundation or
it was nothing, if anything, you know, we were sort of
Barbara, I would just want to say,
easy.
it's information they have on hand, and that
Yeah.
they have to file with the federal government to maintain their 501c stuff, and, you know, just some specifics on why they wanted the grant would be the only thing that's different. It's all information they have.
And we just asked things like, you know, approximately how many people in the town of New Milford in this community do you serve, and which is a logical thing to ask. So we had some sense if we didn't already have a sense, but, you know, we do know these people.
Walter?
What did we fund the VNA? Was that 40,000 last year? I think they were asking
Yes.
for
Believe so.
80.
Yes,
So we funded them 40.
40 last year.
I must have missed your explanation. How did we get down to 20,000 then?
Well, the total amount we thought we could tolerate was 25.
Okay.
And as you can see, the other 3 at 2,000, 2,000, and
Right.
1,000, they're pretty low. And we took the number of people that in their paperwork, they told us how many people they served for this at-home care.
Okay.
And we used the part we don't subsidize.
If the process was logical, then,
Well, Walter and, I mean, there were 4 of us, and
yeah, okay.
I'd say we all felt
Yeah.
it was,
I mean, it's within council's, you know, purview probably to increase it if they want to, or decrease it if they want to. It's just like anything. This is what we came up with through our committee that we felt was fair, given our knowledge of the whole budgetary process and what they've applied for.
And it's just, you know, it's never been an actual item in our budget, you know. We have the Children's Center and the Center Cemetery and the HVA, the regional and the contractual. So that's, if you remember a couple of years ago with Mayor Gromback, we said, well, you know, instead of just being, not willy-nilly, but, you know, you never know who's gonna come and what you're gonna give, that we thought it was a good idea, and the council thought it was a good idea to go at it from a more appropriate, you know, request for a proposal, as we would, so that we'd be able to see what they're doing, see their department budget, if you will. And,
well, if the process was logical, I'm not going to argue with that.
I just remember from last year, they have a pretty robust fund, I think, that's backed up to begin with. And I also think they have a very good fundraising group, what they do. They do a good job throughout the year. I think there was one thing that was a volumetric thing that they were asked for last year, and I forget what it was. I don't know if it was a flu shot or blood work. They could only do 100, but if they received some sort of funding, they were able to get to 150 or 200. Do you remember what that was?
I don't.
Oh, I wasn't sure if they had brought that up. So, made sense. And then the last thing was the Historical Society was $61.75. Was that based solely off lawn maintenance? Or was it lawn maintenance?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so again, that's something that we could maybe find solutions for outside of our budget.
Perhaps.
So, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next is, where are we at next? IT. Kendrick. And this is it 109?
Yes, sorry, 109.
Good evening. My name is Kendrick Protzman. I'm the Technology Director for the town of New Milford. And just wanted to give you a quick overview of the size of the network here that we take care of. We have just 2 employees, myself and a network administrator. Our total salaries are $168,459. We have 9 locations that are all connected with a 10 gigabit fiber backbone. There's 33 servers, and 17 of those are actual physical machines, 16 are virtual servers. There's 164 PCs and laptops. That's combined of all the desktop units, the laptops in the police cruisers, and other laptops that other departments have. 50 network printers. There's 2 phone systems, one for the town, one for the police department. Combined, about 134 desk phones. At this point in time, there's 59 mobile devices. That's scheduled to increase. I believe there's looking at getting more iPads for a couple of departments for things to be able to go out and do inspections, some others for public works and stuff. There's other equipment, firewalls, switches, the Wi-Fi devices, other things coming down the line are camera systems that right now we're not in charge of, but will probably come into our realm shortly within the next year or so. And that's the quick overview of the size of the network here. For my regular budget here, the materials and supplies is mostly software packages that the departments use. We've got the Munis software, which is the financials for the town. Mostly, you know, the finance department, all the other departments use it to put in their requisitions and stuff. Quality data that's used for the tax collector and assessor. Eucatech, our email is done through Gmail, so we have the Google Apps suite. There's a few other softwares that they have in the town. They do dog licensing. They have a software in social services that they use to track their clients and stuff. So there's some support for those software packages all through that company. That cost went up $1,100 because we're adding 13 mailboxes to the Google Suite. We're going to take over the youth agency emails. We started to transition them into our email system. They were on the free Google stuff, and they ran their own. None of their email was backed up, was archived. As we move them into our system, we have the full archive of all the email and stuff, and we've been trying to get them to come over to our side for a while, and they finally agreed to do that. So we're in transition of moving them over, and that's why that line item has increased. Viewpoint is the permit software, which is in all the land use departments. We need to add 5 licenses to that, and that's why that one is going up by $5,200. The licenses are a little over $1,000 a piece. Kind of expensive in my opinion. Let's see, the next one is the repair and replacement line item. I added 1,000 to that. That's used for if printers need to be replaced, if we lose a switch, Wi-Fi devices, any of the hardware and things on the system, if they go down, that's the line item that I use to replace those parts. Also, it's used for things, some departments come to us and they're like, oh, we need Adobe Acrobat. We need to be able to do some different things with it. Well, it's about $250 a copy, so that also comes out of that funding. Like I said, and any other things, some of that was actually down on the bottom there. You can see the line I eliminated was the other line. That was used for a lot of those little software things that would pop up. Last year with the budget reduction, that line item got knocked down by about $2,500. So this year I'm eliminating it, but sort of moving it, eliminating the actual line item, but moving the funds up into the repair and replacement parts. See, the next one is the MyRec software that's used by Park and Rec and the youth agency. That's going up because Park and Rec just added that tracking module that we had asked about how many people are in everything. They just added that module. That's the added cost for that line item. QSend, they host our website, and let's see, for us, the police department is under them. Economic development, I believe, is kind of like a sub-site of that also. So that's the cost for that one. Visions, that's the tax assessor software. We're moving that. Actually, on the 13th is the cutoff date for them to put any new information in. They're grabbing the data, and we're converting that to the new version, version 8, which is a hosted solution by Visions, and that's the increase there. I'm going to get some cost savings on that because we're eliminating a server here that we no longer have to run, plus not just the physical server, but the software, Microsoft SQL Server. We're eliminating that cost. So that's going to kind of wash out there to a certain extent. Firehouse software, all the rest of these, there's really no change in them that I've received from any of those companies. So we do have an increase this year, but each one is for, things that are being added to the system. Are there any questions on this part?
Katie?
Thanks, Kendrick. I do have questions. So, the youth agency, they were using Google, Gmail?
Yes,
and so there was no backup, no security other than what they might have had on their unit, their
Yes.
PC? And how was that allowed?
I have for years have been trying to get that to come over, and they refused.
You allowed them to do that?
Well, it's not, I mean, it's not my choice. I
You're
have
the
no.
IT director, you're responsible for what happens with our
I-
systems, right?
Yes, but I have no authority over the youth agency. I could
Did you ever
go,
let the mayor know that they were not on our system?
yes, I've let all the previous administrations know that, and
This one, did you ever let him know?
I don't remember specifically mentioning it
Okay,
to
is
him.
is there any other department that's not under your supervision, not being? Absolutely.
The only, I have nothing to do with the library. I know they're sort of a town entity, but I do nothing with their network or any of their systems.
They're sort of a town entity, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a town-owned building, and we're getting ready to spend $8 million to upgrade the place. I'd really like to know, aside from this, I'm kind of shocked to hear you say this, I had no idea. Yes, please, would you let us, would you write something up for all of us to say what the concerns you have? I'm assuming you do have the concerns that these people are not under your mantle, because that's just really unacceptable. I mean, they put a lot of things at risk, and not being archived, that's another thing. I mean, that's a big group of people.
Because they were on the free version of Google, they were limited to 10 mailboxes. So they didn't have everybody under that email system, anyway. So
what do the rest of the people in the youth agency use?
I'm not sure. I think they either had a youthagency.org email, or some of them were shared. They had a generic latchkey one that I think 2 to 4 different people monitored.
Okay, but if they're using a website address, which I get that, are you overseeing that? Is that a website you
No,
have control over?
they've always kept that to themselves, and that's another thing that I'm
Okay,
looking at, seeing if we can,
Okay.
like we did with the police department one, pull it underneath ours.
Well, somehow I think the police department probably I wouldn't be worried about so much, but there's an awful lot of people in the youth agency, especially in Latchkey. They have part-time people, and I'm not saying they're not doing anything right, but, you know, as you know better than I do, viruses and threats and things can happen, and if you're not in a system that's being monitored, that could go anywhere. So you will look into that and
Yes.
let us know who else. Are there other websites? Other departments have websites we don't know about, or you're not involved with?
Not that I know of. That's the only other major one. Like I said,
Okay.
the library has always been their own entity. I've never had anything to do with their systems at all.
But don't you think, as the IT director, wouldn't you consider it an important thing to have some sort of oversight on? I mean, you'd have to ask for it. I guess they're not gonna come forward. I'm saying, have you ever mentioned this in your discussions or reviews about things with the mayor?
The library has never come up because,
Okay, well, it's come up now, so. you can-
yeah, I mean, to my understanding, the library wasn't a true town department. It was a pseudo thing that, kind of like a nonprofit that.
It's a town department.
Okay.
It's a town department, so, yeah, thanks.
Trevor?
Just quickly, on the fiber, I saw there was a difference, like $3,400 between JPCC and police station. And one was a lease. Is that why the higher cost, or?
Yes, the one to JPCC is a straight lease from Light Tower. It rides on the contract from up to the police department. That's actually part of the SEN network. That was a state contract, so that was a much reduced price for the one up to the police department. The one to the police department is a 20-year lease through the state contract to bring the SEN network in here.
And just as an overall observation, I'm a commodities guy, but I see the phone system or the phone costs are high. When was the last time we looked at the phone systems in general, town-wide? There's a lot of different solutions now. I don't know.
Well,
Is it high in your opinion?
Fairly new phone system. It
It
was
is, okay.
just put in about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So it's a new Avaya phone system.
Do you have to buy, how does that run? Do you have to buy minutes? Do you have to buy data? How is that all? What drives those costs exactly besides?
Well, the phone system it's an in-house system. We have the actual voicemail and everything sits one's in our data center, one's at the police department. They're I believe a lot of that cost was, it was either financed out or leased out over
Okay, so it's probably
like
leased
a
out.
4 or 5 year, I think it was a 5-year lease on that. That, the financial parts of that were done in the finance department. That's not part of my budget.
Kate?
Kendrick, you said there was an increase in the licenses, and they're $1,000 each or whatever you said. Why? I mean, how many more?
We needed 5 more licenses.
Because?
Because for Public Works, they're sharing 1 right now. And with some of the new employees that have come in there, and it was a strain on it. They were constantly stepping on each other with just the 1 license because they needed.
So they're getting 5 more?
No, not all for them. They need, I think it's like 2 for them. We had pulled 1 from the tax department, and we wanted to give them 1 back because they sign off on some of the permit stuff. So it was 3, 4, and then I can't remember where the 5th one goes.
That was 3. 2 for DPW, back to tax. That's 3.
Tax, shoot, who were the other ones? Oh, the sewer plant, they wanted 2. 1 for the director and 1 for the secretary.
And how many total licenses do we have before you add these 5?
We had 20.
That's for the whole town?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Kendrick? Okay.
And I got, oops, what did I do? This is my capital budget. Every year we do 20 PCs, it's 20,000 for that. Looking to expand on a key fob system that we're in the process of going through and installing in 47 Bridge Street. That can, base key fob system can take on any of the other buildings because we're all linked with fiber. They can literally do 1 door at a time if they want to because they're all IP card readers, and they get their power over Ethernet, so they literally just have to run a wire to it from a switch. Powers it up, links it back into the system. So we're looking at doing the town hall next, and we put in 20,000 to handle doors and things around here. Talked to the mayor about this a bit, and we haven't determined specific doors yet, but by going with the cost for the existing one, we average at about 20,000, should give us a good, feel on this building. And we're looking to upgrade some of our servers to the latest version of Microsoft Office, or not Office, Microsoft Server 2019, and we need 6 licenses for that.
Okay.
Okay, so the key fobs were 47 Bridge Street.
Mhm.
How much is that costing?
That's in
the
this
20?
this year's budget.
It's in the 20,000?
No.
It's in this year's budget,
It's
that
in-
13,500.
Um,
That's what's here.
yes.
Okay, so is that how much it costs to put the key fobs in the building at 47 Bridge Street?
No, it's going to be more than that. And I was,
And are we splitting that with other towns, Mayor? That's the probate court.
That the probate court would have to pay for its own. This is just for us.
For upstairs where you are, Kendrick?
for the outside doors, we're not gonna do the front door because no employees use that. It's only used by the public. So all the probate people come in through the back and they go and unlock that door for the public. So we saved the cost on that. And with the configuration of that door, it was gonna be expensive to do because it's got
Gotcha.
lights on the sides and,
Right,
and stuff. So we're gonna do the outside ones, so that's 3 outside doors. Door to the basement, when you walk in the back, door to our area. And a door down to the records room. Because there's a lot of,
Yes.
old
Okay, so
records down there.
if 13.5 isn't really covering everything you need to do there, and you have 20 for the town hall, You're not intending to do every door in this building?
No, we're not intending to do every door, but part of the cost for the 13 or over is getting the software to begin with, some training, and other initial pieces on the expense. And some of the doors in that building, it'll probably happen in this building too, but some of the doors over there need new push bars because they're not compliant.
Is that included in this 20,000, the push bars, the mechanical stuff?
No, we have not identified individual doors
So
here.
you mean you're gonna spend more than 13.5, you're telling us now
Yes.
already? Okay. So how confident are you this 20 is good enough?
It's not, like I said, it's not gonna cover the whole building, but we're gonna get a
Well, is it gonna cover what you're gonna do, or is that gonna limit what you do? Because if you're gonna need more than 20, you're asking for 20, that's all I'm trying to get to, is it 20 you're gonna use?
Yeah, we'll use the 20, and that's going to cover a good portion of this building, I think, for the main entranceways and the
But is
main-
that where we should be covered? I can't answer that question, I don't know the answer to that, maybe you do. You're gonna do $20,000 worth, is there a plan, a pattern in that to keep it so that we're protecting what we're supposed to be protecting?
Like I said, no, we have not identified the doors yet.
Okay.
I talked about this with the mayor a
But you
little bit.
will be, and you feel
we will.
20 is good. That's all I'm trying to get
Yes.
at. Because you said plus some on 13.5 for this year already, and I want to make sure you're not just going to do some of the work and expect more funding for this. Is 20 a good number?
I believe 20 is a good number. That's going to get us going in this building. I'm not going to look for any more for next year. If we determine then there's 10 more doors in this building that we need, that will go into the following year's budget.
And the software is included in between these two, this year and next year?
Yeah, well, the software's in this year. It gets us into that software.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions so far? More? Okay, Kendra?
And that's really it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just got one.
Doug?
It seems pretty expensive to do a fob system, obviously, right? Between the 13.5 and the 20 that you're proposing for the town hall.
Yes.
Right now, we're using keys, obviously, right, to get in and out. How many people go in and out of the probate that have keys? Ballpark.
I think they have 5 employees and then the 2 of us.
Okay. So it's 7?
Yes.
Total?
But
So
part of that system, like I said, though, is the base system for all the buildings in the town. So there's a certain cost there that's actually gonna cover sort of all the
yeah,
other buildings.
at one point, we're gonna try to get all the town facilities and.
Yeah, onto
do it-
one
yeah.
system, because Richmond Center has its own system.
Right.
Facilities has their own system, police department has their own system. So we'd like to kind of consolidate that, and the cost of keys is kind of outrageous. And also, part of it's with the security. If somebody loses a key, you have to then bring in a locksmith and they have to change locks, which is another expense. If somebody loses a key fob, they're about $5, and we just take it out of the system and it's useless.
So the fobs are actually less than a key?
Way less. Yeah.
Yeah, they can be programmed.
Not only that, though, you know who's going in.
Well, yeah, you can track who's going. I'm just trying to rationalize, you know, the
So one of the
money and
things,
the amount of.
one of the things I saw Doug when I first got here was just what was saying was when people were losing keys or misplacing keys, especially when you're talking about John Pettibone or the senior center, it's lots of money. So we were seeing these escalating key costs. I was just like, what the heck?
Right.
So is there any other way, you know, maybe bring us into this type of thing into the 21st century and use a key fob system? But we definitely need to get back to the council with a more fine-tuned program of what we're talking about right now.
And again, it's easier, you know, with a fob, you can see who's coming in, who's coming out, who
Yep.
was and stuff.
Yeah.
Can you deactivate a fob if it's lost?
Yeah.
No, we would do it ourselves, there's no cost.
Right, but you can deactivate somebody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Understood.
Thank you.
Katie?
Kendrick, the system, I'm familiar with the one that's at the senior center, so that's the same kind of system you're gonna do here?
No, they're
Oh, my gosh.
same in
So,
that
but what-
it's a fob.
I understand
And
that,
that
but
way.
it's not gonna be the same software?
No.
So we spent money to put something in over there that's a one-off?
It's, by the time we get to that building, with doing probably like a building a year or so, that's probably gonna be outdated enough that it would be looking at being replaced anyway. Because the newer technology makes it easier and less expensive to fob a door than the old type of system that's up there.
Okay, thanks.
How old is the system up at the,
Senior center?
I'm not exactly sure because literally until this, I haven't had anything to do really with the key fobs.
5,
Maybe
10?
5 or 6, I think they started 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
So it'll probably be another 4 or 5 years, some would estimate, before we get to that building.
And now the new system that's going in over at the probate, and then also that's going to be going into town hall, that's going to be a new system that is going to slowly replace all the other facilities, correct?
Yes.
And it's a door latch system, not a magnet, right?
Depends on the door. Some doors have to have a magnet, and those will be sort of our one-offs that would need a separate power supply for the magnet.
Those will be like battery backups so they don't fail open, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to say that depends on the door, because if it's an outside door, it has to fail open for
Yeah.
fire and all that. So.
Any questions, Kendra?
No, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Next, Economic Development and Economic Development Commission, and I believe that's page 230. And it's 2:30, 2:31. I'll speak to this department as we are fervently looking for our new economic development director, and hopefully have some positive news in a very short term. I'd like to thank Councilwoman Heda, Councilman Szymanski for their efforts in helping us obtain a stellar economic development director. As you can see in the personnel line, I've requested the same amount as we had last year, so there's no change there. As far as marketing and contractual services, you'll see the marketing in there where it's always been. It's kind of a little conflicting, but you have the money for the fireworks that we do every year that our citizenry enjoys so much. And then the mayor's recommendation of an additional $15,000. And the reason for that addition is a couple of things. One is the person that we are going to be hiring for economic development have to keep up certifications. Those certifications are costly. And number two, this particular person will be going to different trade shows and events nationwide, and that costs money. Booths cost money to set up. So I've asked for that additional funding for that. Then we go to the commission services, the same amount for the tourism. The Film Commission put in their request, and that's where that is. And then I've also put in the recommendation, which Mayor Furman will be talking about a little bit later, which is river front revitalization. I've put in there. Then you have your other professional services, which is the actual stenography for the meeting minutes, and then materials and supplies, then membership and workshops, and that's for the commission itself. And then the annual appropriation where it says $100,000, that was what I talked about before for our community investment officer that would be housed in the Economic Development Corporation. That was for the reason for the annual appropriation. Does anybody have any questions on the Economic Development Office? Okay, so what I'd like to do then is ask Mayor Furman if she'd like to come up and talk a little bit about riverfront revitalization first, and then we'll talk about the Economic Development Corporation after that.
Luckily, we have our tech person here, because I've never done this before.
Good evening, Mayor Bass, Chairman O'Connor, members of the Board of Finance, members of the Town Council. It's my pleasure to be here as the chairperson of the New Milford Riverfront Revitalization Committee and the Bar Grant Steering Committee. You've seen me here not too long ago, so you are kind of up to date on a lot of our activities. For the Board of Finance, who hasn't seen me as often, we are currently at work on many different projects. The Bar Grant Committee that I referred to is established per state request for administering the $170,000 bar grant we received from the Department of Economic Development, and also the match from the town for the market study, analysis, and economic strategies portion. So that's why we have two separate committees. Coincidentally, they're made up by the same people. And so the two committees meet usually back to back on the evenings. We have just retained, or in the process of getting contracts ready for signing, for two consultants. One is for the master plan and the other for our marketing study. And they are both top quality, not international, but boy, I just lost the word. Across the country. They've worked in municipalities from New York to California to everywhere. So we're really excited that we have such wonderful people coming to help the town. So that's the Bar Grant Steering Committee's function. The Riverfront Revitalization Committee has set forth, and I don't know if they were included in your packages, a series of goals that I sent them along with our budget request that will help explain what we're doing. Chief among them is to work with other downtown business associations to help engage constituencies and really put the town together, the riverfront and the downtown, as one entity, and to be looked at that way and to be taken care of that way. So part of our program is beautification of downtown. We've been working, as you know, had volunteers come in last year, and they really did a lot of landscaping work and cleanup along the riverbank, and that work has to be continued. We also are working with the mayor and others on a downtown loop, that we call it the Down to the River Loop, from downtown through Patriots Way and down to the river. The town has appropriated $80,000, and the study for that is in process, and so our committee is also working on that. And also we are looking at trails as economic generators for the town. I look at the work of the Riverfront Committee and the Bar Grant Steering Committee as economic development, because if you have a vibrant downtown, a vibrant riverfront, businesses will want to come here. If you have a dead town, an empty town, that's not a message you want to send out there. And so with the push that we're putting on for economic development, which is our way out of some of the budget dilemmas we find ourselves in, I think that these initiatives are key for the town. The Riverfront Committee is also going to be putting on a number of events, starting with we're working with a group of volunteers on a trash bash to help clean up the downtown and the town. We're doing, in partnership with Go Boy Soaps at Youngs Field in May, New Milford, greatest of all towns with Go Boy Soaps. And we'll be doing kayaking and bicycling and a kite festival at the same time. We're doing Riverfest once again and combining it with an Oktoberfest. And then we will partner and support other activities on the riverfront. So that's a little bit about what we're doing and why we're here for money. So as I mentioned, we're looking at trails as economic generators and connectors. They will connect the riverfront to the downtown village center. It will help contribute to our town's economic vitality. It will create a vibrant sense of community, and it will benefit our economy and attract residents and visitors by leveraging our assets. The buildings are here. Let's market them and let people know the history of New Milford, the culture of New Milford. People are always looking for trails to go on, for activities to do, and heritage trails are all across the country, and they bring tourism and they bring customers to our businesses, and will help to maybe encourage new businesses to locate here as well. So the expected outcomes from these heritage trails would be increased traffic to the downtown, increased tourism, a greater understanding of our town's historical significance and heritage, and in the walking of these trails, the promotion of healthy lifestyles and recreational activities. So here's our budget for this plan. The Downtown Heritage Trail, a brochure, signage, a self-guided trail. There will be mapping necessary so that we can do some accurate maps in the brochures and on our signage. We will, actually, there's a flyer that already has laid the groundwork for us, done by the Historical Society, and it's an update of the American Revolution Bicentennial Committee's work, which already lists, we know the information on these buildings. So mapping them and putting it together will be not as difficult a project as you might think if you're starting from scratch. Design of the brochure and of the signage, photography if needed. We would start off with an initial printing of 5,000 copies of the brochure, which would of course include the map and information. And interpretive and informational signage, similar to, and again, it hasn't been, we don't know the format yet, we don't know the style yet, but we know we need to start doing some of this. So there would be some signs done in year 1, and perhaps we would come back again in year 2 for some additional signs or find funding elsewhere to help support this effort. They would be interpretive and informational signs, similar to what you see at Lover's Leap Bridge and the new sign that has been put up at Boardman Bridge. They're both done by a company called Fossil. They are both very, they're long-lasting. They are guaranteed for a number of years, and they are a really good way to tell our story. And then the 1 mile loop, as I said, the town is working on the sidewalk part of it, and we'd like to help enhance it with perhaps some plantings and again some signage there, and for the tune of $2,500. Just to give you a reference point, and actually Katie was good enough to let me know how much the Boardman Bridge sign cost. I think it was about $600, and then I think there was also some delivery charges on top of that, and the town installed it, so there were no installation fees from a monetary standpoint. But so that gives you, an idea of the signage, and perhaps there would be, one main sign that's larger and kind of gives you the whole focus where you start from. So that's kind of how we're budgeting those costs. What's next? So this is just some samples of, what's going on around the country, different kinds of signs, trail brochures, trail booklets. We're looking not the first year, but perhaps in year 2, having an online app, because, people, everyone's walking around looking at their phones, so they might as well, put this on the phone, similar to the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation has a barn trail on their phone, has a phone app for that. So why not do that? And maybe we'll even have an audio tour as people go through, and again, on your phone with your headset. So, these are some of the things that we could do going forward. Our emphasis on beautification and utilizing, as we have in the past, volunteer labor along the river trail, at the entrances to downtown, along Patriots Way. So we're looking for materials and supplies for that. So we're looking at things like mulch, trash bags if we have to do cleanup, doing some plantings. I actually had just put in a call to the United Way of Danbury, who runs the Day of Caring, where corporate volunteers come to town. They come to the Children's Center.
Day of Action.
Day of Action, you're right. It used to be, I think, the Day of Caring. So they've come to Hunt Hill Farm. I've worked with a number of these groups, and they are fabulous. And so I'm hoping that the United Way might be able to send a team up here as well as one of the volunteer labor efforts that we can do. We are, as you know, required by state statute to conform with the FOI rules for minutes, agendas, postings, and So we have put in money for a secretary. I got the figure after talking with Greg Bolero. He gave me that figure of what he estimated it would cost. This person would, we meet twice a month, and we have a lot of special meetings, and especially now that we're going to be starting to work with the consultant, there'll be more special meetings. So, he thought this would be a fair request. So there was a typo in the budget. The total budget comes out to 18.6. What happened was when I submitted this, I had put the total, and then underneath I put the items, and then so when someone must have been double checking my figures and added it twice. So right there you have a reduction in the budget to 18.6. And I don't know if there's any other questions I can answer for you, but, the Riverfront Committee and the Bar Grant Committee are very, very excited about what's coming up for the town, and we look forward to your support.
Lisa?
So, were you here when Dan Feldman was presenting for?
No, I
Parks and Rec?
missed the beginning.
So,
If
Parks.
there's a duplication,
Yeah, there might be.
Yeah.
Just might be, on the materials and supplies, the mulch, the trash bags, plantings, because Parks and Rec clearly said part of their increases for this coming year was the fact that they're taking responsibility for the river trail. So just something to think about.
Are they taking the responsibility to do the mulching and the reason I think we should.
Maintenance to me would include mulching and clean up the trash.
I would maybe just double check if the mulching is, I'm glad if they do it, please. That would be,
Yeah.
a lot less for our committee to have to do.
Yep.
But,
I'll follow up with them.
the mulching is important because number one, it's good for the roots, it keeps the moisture in, and it keeps the weeds down. So then you don't have to be out there weeding all the time. So,
I completely agree.
yeah, so that's why we had included that in there.
Any other questions?
And I just want to let the committee know that Julie Bailey, who's the co-vice chairman of our committee, is here as well, so, in support.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, now, I've also been designated since Ole Karp, who's the chairman of the Economic Development Corporation, is out of state, so he couldn't be here. And our vice chairman, Ivan Schiffman, was supposed to come and speak, but he took ill. And I'm the secretary of the corporation, so I got elected to be here as well
Mayor,
for that.
Ole also gave us a letter.
Oh, okay, the one,
If I
the
could-
email today?
Yeah, if I could
Okay.
read this to the,
Oh, can I just do one other thing?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Under personnel, you see that we have a secretary. For the past year, or ever since it's probably a year and a half now, that we have been, as a functioning committee, we've had the services of the town planner, who morphed into community investment officer to help us and guide us. And, the committee, and I think Lucy was here last night to speak to, her concerns, that, who's going to help and work with the committee, not so much on perfunctory things like scheduling a meeting or whatever, but on guiding, on giving input, on doing research. These are things that, we're all volunteers, and even as volunteers, we're working full-time, some of us, on this work. So I'm just putting in a plug that, we do need some kind of assistance here going forward, professional and technical assistance.
and this letter, I just want to read into the minutes, and I'll give it to you, Stephanie, if you don't have a copy. Okay. This was from Ole Karp, he's the chairman of the Milford Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Mayor, I regret that I will not be in attendance tonight to present the budget request of the corporation in the Milford Economic Development. Mayor Furman, our secretary, will be presenting on our behalf. I do, however, want to take this opportunity to express my support for our request on your recommendation of $100,000 for the continuation of the community investment officer position. Your vision in the creation of this position has been the needed catalyst for the implementation of the corporation's existing but long dormant programs. Over the first 6 months of its existence, the community investment office facilitated more activity in our loan and grant program that has been accomplished over the last decade. I'm sure the position's support of the town's POCD and riverfront efforts has been equally as important. I think we both agree that there is a sense of momentum in what the corporation is trying to achieve for the betterment of our community. I would hope the council will agree and vote in favor of maintaining the position. Sincerely, Ole Karp, Chairman of the New Milford Economic Development Corporation. Mayor?
Okay, thank you. With me tonight also is Denise DeMastro, who you all know from the Chamber of Commerce. She's also a member of the Economic Development Commission. So I thank Denise for being here tonight in support. The corporation is a 501c3 nonprofit, tax-exempt corporation. I believe it was established in 2008, and it was established really through town government who believed at the time that we needed to have such a second economic development corporation because of the fact that they can provide the community with a strong and consistent and a nonpartisan business-driven organization that's ready to proactively take on the challenges associated with the vibrant economic development effort. The corporation can accept funds independent of the town budget to supplement town resources and can also stage fundraising efforts to further increase earned money. Our mission, briefly, this is out of our bylaws, a synopsis, is to promote and assist the growth and development of business, to increase economic and employment opportunities, to preserve and expand the tax base. I mean, right there is the core of the mission, expand the tax base, while we improve the quality of life for all residents, and to participate in developing a comprehensive plan, to assist in the planning and development of project studies and activities, and to engage in any other lawful activity that is authorized under the Connecticut General State Statutes. So about the corporation. Basically, the corporation is back in a startup mode. Even though it started back in 2008, several years ago it kind of went on a hiatus. It wasn't receiving, I think, the support that it needed, and so, like I said, it went on a hiatus. In 2018, with the help of Mayor Bass, the corporation kind of reconstituted itself. The remaining board of directors who had stayed on the board started to meet. They had no staff, and they just had some budget money left. The corporation, which is an all-volunteer effort from our business community and public sector, has over the past few months strengthened its administrative and legal structure. We've rewritten our bylaws. We've come up with a series of new members. Oli Karp, who is a retired and seasoned economic development professional. He worked for the state. He's worked for municipalities. He worked for the city of Worcester in the past. He's retired and lives here in New Milford, and how lucky are we that he agreed to be the chairperson. Members of the commission, corporation also include 4 ex officio but voting members. They are the mayor, the chairman of the planning commission, zoning commission, and the economic development commission. We envision that the town's economic development director will work with our corporation so that we can fulfill and implement the town's economic development goals and objectives. State law recognizes economic development corporations as tools to address public economic needs. It lets municipalities designate the corporation as a development agency. So for instance, if you have a project the town wants done, the Economic Development Corporation could put out the RFP, could seek funding, could get grants for it, and could kind of act as the implementation agency to put that project together. Economic development corporations can own land, they can borrow, and the beauty of the corporation is also in the grants that it applies for, there's usually administrative fees that will come back to help pay for the corporation staff. And in that way, we could, quote, wean ourselves off of the town's money once we get rolling and get successful on a number of projects. So our 2019 goals are to receive designation as the town's development agency, to initiate some projects, to work with the mayor, the economic development director, the town council, and to initiate and undertake projects together for the town, to support the implementation of strategies and suggestions of the market analysis that will be coming, and to participate in the Riverfront Revitalization Master Plan. In addition, the town is now working on an adaptive reuse plan of the East Street School, and this is perhaps a place where the corporation could step in and help the town implement whatever the use is that you decide on. We also have a facade grant and loan program that had been dormant for quite a number of years, and we want to offer that to a lot more businesses. It's for the downtown village center. So, for example, Ruth Chase Florist across the street took advantage of it a number of years ago, and there are others. And so, we're very eager to start spending that money because it doesn't do the town any good just sitting in a bank account. And then we will also begin soliciting corporate, foundation, and public funding. We have 2 fundraisers planned. June 28th, get out your golf clubs and come on down. We're going to have a golf tournament to raise money. And then we hope to have a dinner similar to what the corporation did a number of years ago, and bring in a fabulous speaker that will attract people to come. So some of our successes to date. Since Kathy came over to the corporation, or since the community investment officer came over to the corporation, we were very successful in marketing the facade program. She has been out knocking on doors, doing press releases, talking to people, and I think we just closed on 2 more grants. Is it 2 today, Michael?
Yes.
Yeah, and then last week we closed on another. Johanna's will be having new signage and help on theirs. And there's probably a list of 6 to 8 others that are like imminent to apply for. So we're really, really pleased that this is really starting to take action. We also developed a partnership with the Hartford Economic Development Corporation because they have access to more money than we do. And so for larger projects, we can take our people there to apply for grants. And we do have one potential that we will be working with to help them perhaps get some money from that Economic Development Corporation. We've recruited 13 new members in the past year. We have an office set up at 43 West Street, and through the donations from just generous people, you can see that the office is set up for business and has some furniture, beautiful carpeting, and like I said, it's open for business. And not only is the Economic Development Corporation using this office, but I know that we've held a number of riverfront committee or subcommittee meetings there as well, so it's able to be used by others as well. We have a new logo. Instead of being New Milford Corporation for Economic Development or the New Milford Economic Development Corporation, we wanted to set ourselves apart from the commission. And so we developed a new logo with the help of Tony Vengrove, and which is up in the corner. So we are the Corporation for New Milford Economic Development. We're working on getting a Facebook page started. We have to kind of straighten out between the commission and the corporation so that they're separate pages. And a website is going to be launched shortly. We also, the corporation was a co-sponsor of Riverfest and acted as the fiduciary agent for that event. And we have CERC listings now up and posted. And we just held our annual meeting January 24th, and it was very, very well attended. We opened it to the public because we wanted the public to know that we exist. Number one, we wanted the public to hear what we do. And we also asked Mayor Bass to be our speaker for the evening on a year in review. And like I said, it was very, very well attended. Afterwards, there was a chance for camaraderie between the public and commission members, and it was very, very successful. So let's get to the money, huh? That's why we're here. Our request is the $100,000 that will fund a full-time community investment officer and benefits. The corporation, in addition to that, there's other expenses and other things that we do, so it's not like we just want your money and we're not going to do anything to help ourselves. We are about to embark on fundraising, and I broke down the revenues and the anticipated expenses. As a first-year startup, the event expenses are a little more expensive than perhaps towards the income, but I think as we get rolling, get moving, you know, over the years, the ratio will change. It includes money for administration, you know, the usual the accountant. It's a 501c3, we have to file our own 990 EZs, supplies, postage, dues and subscriptions, filing fees with the Secretary of State or whatever other organizations we have to, and mileage. Overhead is the rent, the telephone, internet, insurance. Event expenses, as I said, golf tournaments, dinner, Riverfest. There's some seed money in there for Riverfest, not the entire Riverfest money at this point. And then we'd like to hold a couple of business forums where we invite local businesses and bring in speakers that can help them with different aspects of their business. And perhaps that might be done in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, or, you know, there are some other local business associations as well. The marketing is for website and for design and printing of materials as well. And the marketing will be coordinated with the Economic Development Director and the town, so that we're working together. You know, this website will host on the town's website. It will not be a separate freestanding website. And is going to be written by the volunteers on the commission to save costs. And I think that is it. So I would welcome any questions that you have, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mayor. And just real quick about the corporation, and why should we have the corporation? Like what's the difference? This corporation will help us financially in a lot of different ways. Being on the Economic Development Commission for numerous years, then on the corporation on the Sewer Commission. One of the things that we did do on the commission itself was kind of look at best practices. What other towns use different entities to help create economic development? And we looked at Shelton as a model. Shelton, through its Economic Development Corporation, was able to get about $250 million in funding over the last 10 to 12 years. Let me repeat that, $250 million. The corporation, because it's a 501(c)(3), has the opportunity to track funds that the town itself couldn't get. So by using this and harnessing different revenue sources, it expands our opportunity to do numerous things. One, as the mayor talked about before, facade improvement grants, loans. We did partner with the Hartford Corporation. But if we can get up to our own heft, we can be doing those deals ourselves, which then helps our business community. And I'll give you a kind of a quick analogy. So you have a business that would want to move here. So they want to buy some property and put up a building and some machinery. So the regular bank says, okay, Mr. Smith, we'll do that, but you need to put 20% down. So the entity says, I only really have 25% to put down. How do I do that? Well, a corporation could bridge that and put the 5% down, the additional, which then makes us a viable community for them to come in and put their business here versus somewhere else like a Shelton or a Danbury that will allow to provide for that type of financing. So it's a definite opportunity that we have to do that. Another one is we talked about being a dedicated development agency. So let's use as an example, East Street School, no matter what use we use for it. If we decide to do that, one of the grant fundings, which has to go to a 501(c) from the Connecticut Historic Preservation Trusts, allows us, depending on what use we would have to that building, anywhere from 25 to 40 cents on the dollar to do the renovation costs. So we couldn't do that as a town. We'd have to do that through a corporation or another 501(c). Hence, there's another opportunity through the corporation that we could have versus not having that type of corporation. As I said, if you look at other cities in Connecticut or other municipalities, you'll see that a corporation has been very productive and enhances our opportunity for economic development. And I think any additional tool belt we can give our new economic development director to achieve success, I think it's an opportunity well chosen. So, sorry for my pontification.
Very well spoken.
Any questions for Mayor?
Yes.
I saw you had a rent expense in there.
Yes.
Is that something that we could put in at a town property or to save money, or is it a very nominal cost? I saw there was a general line with a whole bunch of other
I
things
think
in
the
there.
rent comes out to $300 a month.
Oh.
So, it's 3
With electric
rooms,
included.
there's a conference room and 2 office
So-
rooms, so, I mean,
It's a winner.
we,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean.
Never mind then.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, the electric bill's cheaper if we stay there than it
Yeah.
is here in the heat.
Kate?
Thanks, Leva, very thorough. I just have one thought, really, or question. Since we have a new ED coming in part of your, by the way, can you send us those slides? I never got any.
Oh, okay, I had sent a written script to, and never
Never
got
saw those
through.
slides.
Not the-
I don't
well,
know
the
if there's-
slides I didn't know how to go to, I just had sent my budget request in.
We'll make sure- we'll make
Well, I
sure-
don't, no, that's
we'll
okay.
make
I'll
sure-
I'll
send it
send
after.
them
But here,
tonight.
I'm just, if we
Yeah.
have a new director coming, and part of what you were talking about is the marketing stuff, wouldn't it make sense to wait for the director to be in place to kind of mesh with that person's thoughts and ideas on marketing? I mean, that's sort of what we're paying for.
I have, yeah, I mean, yeah, that, we have no
But
qualms
it's-
about that, that they
But
should
you have
work
it in
together.
your budget where the director will have a budget also.
Because what we also want to market is not just, we want to market the corporation as an entity itself, so that people know there's a corporation to come to, and market our programs, which are a little, like the facade improvement program, the ability to get these loans out of Hartford. That's what we want to market.
So you don't think there'll be overlap? I just look at some of
Yeah.
the costs and think, that's sort
No,
of
it's a good point, yeah.
No,
overlapping.
Katie, there's definitely gonna be a learning curve here with the new director coming in and how her vision and how the corporation is gonna be utilized. So I'm not saying it's a holding pattern, but it is gonna be something that,
Right, all I'm talking about is just the money part.
Yeah, I
That in the interim, adding money to the budget before someone is here to put their 2 cents into it, and that's just a comment.
Yeah, no,
But
I mean,
if you could
it's a good
send-
question.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I must have missed your script, but I would really love to see the slides and the ones you had
Sure.
earlier also.
Yes, yes.
With your other
So should I
hat.
send them to the mayor's
You
office
can
and
send
they'll
them,
forward them on?
and they'll forward them to all of us.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, the other thing, and it ties in with the corporation also, the corporation is very excited about the whole Riverfront Initiative and the town marketing study, because finally, there'll be some real data to work with. And so, again, it ties back to this community investment officer can be assisting on that, and the economic development. I'm thrilled the timing here, because to have the new economic development director come in right at the beginning of these initiatives is just fabulous, and will help us set the tone and the pace, and we'll benefit from that experience as well. So,
Trevor? We're working on it.
Okay. I just noticed that. Anyway, I'm just here.
We're working on it.
And you're leading some of the charge in locating?
I am.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Mayor Frank? Walter?
So we're gonna have 2 creatures then. One is gonna be an economic developer, the director, and then we're gonna have a community investment officer.
So the goal, Walter, had been.
Is there gotta be some kind of overlap there?
Yeah, so
Will
the-
both have the
so kind
power?
of the theory in place is, your economic development director is gonna be, for a better term, is gonna be your face of economic development outside. They're gonna go out getting deals. They're gonna go
Right.
out bringing in business.
Okay.
So once the business is brought in, now comes the other part, which is to get that business, whether it be an existing business to expand or a new one coming in, through the system. So you're gonna have somebody that's gonna be kind of back office, so to speak. So they're gonna have to bring them through their land use, answer any questions that they may have, kind of hold their hand. Because one thing I have learned in the years of being on the commission, the corporation, and in this chair for the last year, is that one of the main reasons why people invest in your town, one of them is ease of execution, ease of coming into your town and doing the right things, right? Maintaining your character, but how easy it is to get this process done. If it's a good thing, they're gonna go out and tell everybody, wow, this town's open for business. If it's not, they're gonna tell everybody how this town isn't good for business. So the goal is you're gonna have your one face that's gonna go out and produce the sales, so to speak, and the other one's gonna be the back office, really pushing that deal through the system, so that that person that's making the largest salary on the town side is doing their business. Because we're holding them to a pretty high metric. So we're gonna give them every opportunity. So that's kind of the thought process with the two
In addition, the community
agencies.
investment officer will be an assistant to the economic development director as well. It's not strictly a position that services the corporation, in my mind. I think,
Correct.
you know, they all will work together.
I was kind of feeling Katie's remark there. We're gonna have two people, that's gonna cost the community $250,000.
So.
That's a little hefty.
I'm sorry.
So do you remember budget discussions last year when we talked about the premise of the economic development director? And there were two things that went into the job description, which I had vetted against recruiters who do this for a living nationally. We put in there 75 to 100 jobs every year and 20 million in grand list growth over 5 years. So the economic development director has some very hard and fast goals. If we can do that, we can really see a change in our grand list growth and take some of the burden off the taxpayers. So that person that's why they're earning that salary. And similarly, the community investment officer doing the back end closing the deal. So you've got your person out finding the deal and the person closing the deal. And interestingly enough, one of the things we've heard consistently from candidates as they get interviewed, as well as recruiting firms when we went through the bidding process to select a recruiting firm, is we don't have a brand. You know, we have a little bit of a web presence, but how it's represented and when they come see our town are two very different things. So there's a lot of work to be done to get the news out of who we are and how great we are. I'm really excited. I know it's a big ask, but the return to me is going to be so tremendous.
The other thing too, because you guys keep talking about new business, but there's a lot of small businesses in this town that are just kind of out there and feel like they're on an island because there's no one there. And the community investment officer has been meeting with a lot of these people and finding out some of their concerns and trying to help them work their ways through some of the issues with government. And that's something that we haven't had for a long time. I'm a small business owner, actually two in town.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I know what's going on in town is because I'm on the council and I'm on the economic corporation. But as far as people coming out to see me and see how my business is going, I don't think that's ever happened. That's now something that's happening, and it's huge because you want to keep them in town too.
And Walter, looking at a purely financial component of it, as we're all sitting here looking at revenue decreases from the state, because they're doing it, right? If this economic development director can hit their target of the jobds and the grand list growth, they will well more pay for themselves plus that whole staff easily.
I would disagree.
Yeah,
Not if, when.
exactly.
And I think you need a different form of financial innovation. I mean, as you just pointed out, the banks are very limited. You know, you get so much. Startups, forget about it. You better go give your company away. You know, so is what small towns need this. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
So now, with the economic development officer position, is that something that we're going to try for a few years, see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then we'll scrap it, or is it?
So one thing I can assure you, if this person doesn't hit our metrics, there will be another person that will be taking their place.
Sounds
Absolutely.
good to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Before we adjourn, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Bailey. There's
Denise.
public, Denise, thank you. Do we have anyone that would like to comment from the public this evening? Okay. Seeing if there isn't any, before we adjourn, Walter, I'd just like to say, this has been posted, but just so you have it here, for the town council. We start our budget deliberations tomorrow night, 7 p.m., the E. Paul Martin Room. Just to let you know, this was clocked in on February 15th, so we've met the compliance. So Walter, I'll let you start this evening first with your wanting to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the Board of Finance meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
And
Motion to adjourn the town council.
thank you. And before we finish, just real quickly, it's been a pleasure with our Board of Finance members and our town council for hearing from our department heads, our nonprofits, and all of our entities, public at large, about our process, how we do it here, which is old New England style, doing it in a transparent way, and I want to thank everybody for helping us in the process. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor on the council?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You're starting?